This is Criminally Obsessed. I'm Autumn. He's Erik, and our mission is to be first on the scene to keep you guys the most informed. Erik, as you know, in our daily editorial meeting, it's our job to sift through the internet and find the most interesting, crazy true crime stories that we possibly can that day, right? So I was doing my job, and this headline was true crime related, wasn't really that exciting, kind of like a vanilla-ish headline, but I'm like, all right, this is my job, gotta check it out, have to do my due diligence, right? So I click on it and I could not believe the story that unfolded before me. Okay. It actually goes all the way back to 1939, but there was a major update just recently. And that's how we got here. So I cannot wait to tell you this story.
Yeah, I'm a little jealous that like you've known this for like this long and you're just telling me now. So yeah, let's just get into it.
Let's jump in, okay? So today I'm going to tell you all about Sharon Kinne. She was a woman who blamed a murder on her 2.5-year-old daughter, went to trial multiple times for another murder, then fled to Mexico, killed another person there, and these aren't even the craziest parts of the story.
I'm still stuck on the blamed her 2-year-old daughter for a murder. Like what what are you talking about?
Let's get into it. Sharon Elizabeth Hall was born on November 30th, 1939 in Independence, Missouri. Now, it was the 40s when she was growing up. It was, post World War II. There was an economic boom. Suburbanization was going on. There were strict gender roles. So just, placing you into that time so you kind of know how things are, right? This takes us to summer of 1955 when Sharon's 16 years old. She ends up meeting a 22-year-old man named James Kinney. He is a student attending BYU. He's just in Independence for the summer, right? Yeah. They start hanging out. He's a quiet guy. He's really into his studies, but him and Sharon kind of hit it off, right? And you might say, well, 16-year-old girl, 22-year-old guy, some kind of weird, but remember, this is a different time. Things were very different then. So their summer fling ends and James goes back to school. But what James doesn't know is that his life is about to change when he receives a letter from Sharon. He opens the letter and she tells him that she's pregnant.
Oof. Oof. Oh God, okay.
Difficult
So
for a
what does he do
16-year-old
next?
and a college student, right? Well, he's a Mormon, so this is kind of an issue. He immediately moves back to Independence and they get married like pronto. It was actually October 18th of 1956 was when they wed. Now, as you do when you get married, you have to fill out a marriage license. There was a little suspicious activity going on in their marriage license because Sharon listed her age as 18, which was probably an age of consent issue, but she also listed herself as widowed, which to everyone's knowledge, she was not. She claims...
So why did she do that then?
So for a very short time, her family actually lived in Washington and moved back to Independence. Just a little blip in history. She claims that when they lived there, she married an unnamed man and he died because his car drove off of a cliff. And no one can corroborate this story, but it's worth noting because she felt compelled enough to put it on the license, right?
Sorry, did he drive off a cliff or his car just went off a cliff?
It's really, we don't know.
Uh-huh.
The man and the car, though, off the cliff. We don't know his name, nothing, right? So
Okay.
Sharon and James are married. It's 1957. She's 18 years old. Their first child's born. All is well in the home front, right? But Sharon wanted a little bit more than what she had. She really wanted to take advantage of this golden age, and she wanted the finer things in life. She loved to shop, and apparently she had a luxury shopping addiction, if you will. And she was kind of badgering James all the time because he worked a lot. I mean, he had to support her shopping habit, and she just didn't like that. She got bored a lot. She got so bored that she was a bit of a cheater.
Oh God, this poor guy. I mean, granted,
I know.
this poor guy, this 22-year-old who hooked up with a 16-year-old, but still, like,
Oh, yeah. Sucks both ways, right? So she actually ended up hooking up with a high school friend named John Boldes, and he kind of just was there. I hate to describe him that way, but he was just there. And when she was lonely, he was around, and he kind of just got into trouble with her whenever she was getting into trouble. But like, was Sharon a bad person, or was she just lonely, or was she just 18? You got to think, like, no matter what decade we're in, being tied down at 18 with kids, that's a lot. It's not the easiest, right?
Yeah, no.
But things start to change in the marriage. We're rolling around to 1960 now. James is getting fed up. He's tired. He works all the time to support his wife's shopping habits. He's going into debt. She's cheating on him, and he's sick of it. Mm-hmm. And he actually brings up divorce. And you got to remember, in the 60s, I actually did a little research, and I found out that only 1.6 people per 1,000 were actually getting divorced at the time. And he was Mormon. So this was actually a pretty big deal for him to want a divorce. And Sharon agrees. She said, yeah, I'll divorce you. But she has some requirements. She wants to keep the house. She wants custody of their daughter. And at the time, they had 2 kids. And she wants alimony of $1,000, which in today's time equals $10,000.
I was about to say, like, you would think with someone who doesn't want to be, like, that attached to anything that she wouldn't keep the kids, but I'm guessing there was some sort of child support thing where, like, she wanted a little extra cash to help out.
That's a great idea. I didn't even think of that. And you know what? James is like, I'm not forking over all that money. I will not agree to these terms. I will just stick it out with you.
Right.
And unhappy or not, they just, continue life as is. And on March 19th, 1960, it's a day like every other. James comes home around 3 p.m. and he's tired, so he lays down for a nap. Mm-hmm. Around 5 p.m., Sharon starts getting ready to go out that night. She's in the bathroom, not far from the room where James is sleeping. She's getting ready. All of a sudden, she hears a gunshot go off in her house. And she's freaking out, like, oh my God, what's going on? Is there an intruder? Just total panic, right? She's running through the house, trying to figure out what's going on. She makes her way to the bedroom where James was sleeping and finds him laying on the bed with a gunshot wound to the back of his head, the gun laying right next to it, and her 2-year-old daughter standing there.
Oh, God, it's Maggie Simpson. And she shot Mr. Burns.
Oh, my God.
Oh, no. Okay.
So she is just completely frazzled, right? She calls 911. They get there. They're trying to calm her down and just get some idea of what happened here, right? Like, they've whisked him away in the ambulance, and they're just like, Sharon, walk us through what happened. Just try to calm down and remember what happened, right? In a panic, she's like, I was just getting ready to go out for the night. I was in the bathroom down the hall, and the gun went off, and they're asking her anything leading up, like, just try to calm down and think. And she goes, well, actually, before the gun went off, I do remember hearing our daughter say, Daddy, how do you work this thing?
Oh, no. Oh, no. So, like, I guess where did she know, like, where he, like, previously kept the gun, and, like, maybe, like, the kid just stumbled upon it?
Well, so that leads us into the investigation, right?
Okay.
Apparently, James let the kids play with guns, and it wasn't uncommon for them to just be messing around with Dad's guns. When they began the investigation, they actually questioned family and neighbors, and everybody corroborated this. They said, yeah, James let the kids play with guns all the time.
Yeah, and this is like the 60s, right? So this is kind of the era where, like, gun safety isn't that big of a thing like it is nowadays. So, like, people are kind of just like, yeah, hold my gun, hold my pistol, my German Luger, take it. Like, yeah.
Right. And maybe because there were less instances of this happening.
Right.
But, investigation continues. So do they do a gunshot residue test on the baby? No. Do they do a gunshot residue test on Sharon? Also no.
What the hell do they do? Like, that's step 1. Why would you not do that?
They have some unconventional ways of solving crimes here. Why don't I show you?
Okay.
So the investigator goes to the Kinne house, and he takes a seat, takes out a pistol. That's the same type of pistol that was used to shoot James Kinne in the back of the head. Okay. He takes it out, places it on the coffee table, and then he just sits back, right? And he waits. And the 2-year-old comes into the room, walks to the table, apparently picks up the pistol, and handles it like a pro.
Whoa, that's sick.
So,
that baby is a man disguised as a baby.
And case closed. accidental homicide.
That's crazy.
It. That's all of the investigation that was done. What do you think of that detective work?
That's part of me respects it. That's
okay.
the part of me that's the part of me that's like, that's kind of cool. Like, that's like something you'd see in a movie where it's just like, and case closed. Let's pack this up, guys, and go smoke cigars in the backyard. But like,
case solved.
I mean, you would think that they would still like, yes, do that. That kind of makes sense. But at least like maybe also check for residue. Like, part of it's lazy and part of it's kind of genius.
Yeah, and let me just read you a quote from the Kansas City Star. So, the detective did not question the little girl about her actions on the day of the tragedy, but his experiment convinced him that she is familiar with the pistol and is not afraid of it. So, this leads us right into Sharon's new life, okay? Sharon collected $29,000 in insurance money, which would equal to about $300,000 in today's time.
Sick.
So, she came up, right? And we all know Sharon likes to shop. So what does she do? She goes to the Ford dealership.
We're in the money. Living it up large.
She's buying all of the things, right? So she goes to the Ford dealership. She gets herself a brand new Thunderbird with AC. And like 20% of cars had AC in 1960. So she was getting all the bells and whistles, okay?
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah. And she left with more than just a new car from that dealership. She left with a new boo, okay? 23-year-old Walter Jones Jr. And Walter Jones Jr. was the man that sold her that car.
I was about to say, love at first paycheck.
Yes. So Walter was married with 2 kids. He was also a known cheater. And he was married to his high school sweetheart. Her name was Patricia. She was reported to be put together. They even called her vivacious in an article. She had her shit together. She worked for the IRS, but they're high school sweethearts. So she just like kind of puts up with his shit, you know? But him and Sharon, they're having fun. She's basically his side chick sugar mama because she's got all this money. You know, they go spend the night at a hotel. She's forking over the bill and they're having fun. Walter is just having fun. Sharon invites him to go on a vacation to Washington and he declines. He's like, look, I'm having fun. It's nothing more than that. But Sharon's really trying to lock him down because she sees husband number 2 potential in him.
Right.
But that all is going to change. And Sharon is going to leave her mark on Walter's life too. Because she calls him and has some very, very important news to tell him. Sharon calls and lets Walter know that she's pregnant.
Of course. Yeah.
And she's thinking in her mind, this is going to lock him down. He's going to leave his wife. Absolutely not. He ghosted her.
Like 9 times out of 10, they're not going to call back. They're like, well, have fun with that.
They're probably not going to talk to you anymore and they're going to move on.
Right.
So, like every side chick in this situation, she is pissed, right? So on May 26th of 1960, Sharon decides to do what every crazy side chick does. She calls Patricia at work, at the IRS, mind you, which I think is ballsy.
That's wild.
Crazy, right? Yeah. So Sharon calls Patricia and says that she wants to meet up with her later that day to talk because Walter's having an affair with her sister. Sharon doesn't have a sister.
Oh, okay. All right.
So obviously Patricia is like, yeah, I want to know what's going on. So she carpools because that's how she gets around to their meeting spot. And she's with her coworkers from the IRS, right? So they are in the car learning what's going on in real time. She gets dropped off. We're going to table that for a minute, right? Like they have their girl chat, whatever. Walter gets home around 9 p.m. that night and Patricia's not there. So he's freaking out because Patricia's not in the streets like him. She's a responsible wife and mother. Like she has the kid, you know, everything ready for the kids. This is so unlike her. So he starts calling around to everybody to find out where Patricia is because he's panicked. And all roads lead to Sharon. So he calls Sharon and Sharon is like, yes, I did talk with her, but nothing happened. I dropped her off near your house, which she knows because she's porking him.
True.
And he's like, you need to meet me. So they meet. It gets heated. He actually threatens her at a certain point because obviously he's pissed. This is his wife and the mother of his children.
Right.
So they go their separate ways. Following day is May 27th of 1960. And setting the scene here, we've got a couple in a car driving up to a lover's lane. Do you know what a lover's lane is, Eric?
It's a lane for lovers.
Yes, it's kind of an old term people don't really use anymore. But basically, it's a place that people go who either can't afford a hotel or can't go home because they are not old enough to be doing the things they're doing or they're cheating, right?
Got it.
So this couple pulls up to do whatever one does in Lover's Lane. And it's east of Independence, right? It's a wooded area with brush. I'm kind of painting the picture of trees. It's sort of somewhat secluded, right? And they pull up and they notice a body in the brush. And they're like, okay, whatever vibe was has been killed because what the fuck is that, right?
The love is quite literally dead.
Yes. Everything is done. So the man calls 911 to report that there's a body missing, right? And they arrive to the scene, talk to the man. The man is John Boldes.
Okay.
Sharon's high school lover.
Oh, no! I forgot his name! No! Okay.
That's John. So they start questioning him, and he's under fire, and he admits that Sharon actually was the one that proposed going to this area to help Walter search for Patricia. Mind you, they go there and find a body. Right. She also made him drive her home before he called 911. And he's telling the police all of this, right? He admits they go there often. So at this point, John and Walter are both being questioned, and Sharon is completely uncooperative. And how do you think Walter feels right now? Like, actually, I have a photo of how he feels, Eric. Look, take a look at this sorry man.
That man is stressed. Like the full thinking man pose, like I'm never gonna recover for this.
Walter is on the struggle bus. It is not looking good for my guy. And while they're investigating, it's confirmed that the body is Patricia's. And she was shot 4 times, once in each shoulder, once in the stomach, and once in the head with a .22, which, if you remember, is the same kind of gun that killed James Kinne. But that gun was confiscated, so we know it's not the same gun, right? There were also powder burns on her body, so that proves that the shot was done at close range. But there's no blood at the scene, so they're sort of toying with the idea that maybe this happened somewhere else, and then her body was brought there. So,
you want my theory? You want my theory so far?
Are we going to theory it up right now? Go ahead, shoot me.
No. Do I look like a 2-year-old to you?
You're right. You're past that stage.
Well, yes, I mean, that was my theory. My theory is, what was that 2-year-old doing? Like, can anybody clock where Sharon's daughter was at the time of the murder?
Where was the 2.5-year-old, please?
Yeah. Mommy needs help.
Right. Oh my God. So, they're questioning Sharon more and more, and she swears up and down that she just talked to Patricia and dropped her off near her house, and she would never do something to hurt Walter because she loved him so much. And they talked to one of Sharon's coworkers, and this person admitted to secretly purchasing a .22, which is the same gun that killed Patricia, for Sharon. And when they confront Sharon about it, she says that she lost it in Washington, right? So she just totally breezes over this. On the 31st of May, 1960, Sharon's arrested for the murder of Patricia Jones, and the sheriff's department asks to file a second charge for the murder of James Kinne.
Ooh.
So they're bringing up old shit, right?
Yeah.
But her family is just so distraught at the idea of her being accused of something like this that they release her on $20,000 bond that afternoon.
Which I'm sure she had because she had the 300. Well, at least somewhere around 300K. Yeah.
She was released. So this woman at this point has been adjacent to 2 murders, and we still think she's innocent. Now, is she a master manipulator, or is this kind of a sign of the times? Because back then, being a widow, a mother, kind of meant something different. I think it held more weight than maybe it does looking at it in today's time, right? So that brings us to June of 1961, when an all-male jury acquitted Sharon Kinne, citing, quote, just too many loopholes. Mm-hmm. And at that trial, one of the jurors even asked for an autograph. And here's a photo, Eric. Please look at this photo of one of the jurors asking her for an autograph.
Like, that's actually insane. Can you imagine doing this at like Ted Bundy's trial or something? Like,
I mean, I'm sure there were some unwell people there because that always happens, right? Like this always happens with serial killers. The other interesting that I found in all of my research is a lot of the coverage talks about her looks. They're like, she is pretty with her blue eyes. Like, just they really lean into the way she looks. Which
listen here, boys. She's too hot to kill.
I mean, this was just, I think, fascinating news for the time to hear of a woman that had all these kids, that had been married. Like, how could she be capable of doing something so devious, right? And
it kind of reminds me of Chicago, the musical. Like,
okay, I've never seen it, so maybe I should.
The whole thing is about like these like really attractive women who are like trying to get off from like their murder cases, but like they're using like the press as and kind of making like court a bit of a show for people, and like it makes them so likable that they're like, we can't put them to death, we got to let them out of jail. They had the reason for doing what they did. Kind of reminds me of that a bit.
So from January of 1962 to June of 1964, Sharon stood trial 3 times for the murder of James Kinne.
Oh wow, okay. So they fully got rid of like the other case. Like they're fully trying to come back to this one and nail her.
They're working hard to convict this woman. So the first one was an overturned conviction. The second was a mistrial, and the third was a hung jury. So that brings us to September of 1964, and Sharon is out doing what she does best, and that's catching feelings. Okay? Somehow she bagged Francis Pugliese. And let me just show you, Eric. Look at this photo.
Oh, damn.
Hottie.
Look at that. Look at the smolder. Look at the Timothée Chalamet cheekbones.
How did she pull him?
That James Dean haircut. I love this guy. That guy is cool looking.
He rocks, right? So he's a hairdresser, and I just imagine that she rizzed him up while he was cutting her hair, and we just did not know you had it like that, ma'am. So the two have a little fling, and Sharon decides to leave all of her children with James's father, the man who she essentially murdered, and decides to run off to Mexico with Francis.
Interesting. Okay.
And
I mean, not shocked. That feels like something she would do.
Absolutely not shocked, right? And there are rumors that they were at some point going to get married. They ended up shacking up at a hotel called the Hotel Gin. And when they check in, they check in as husband and wife. So, you know, they're doing a couple things down in Mexico, running from the law in the States.
Okay, a little Bonnie and Clyde, yeah.
Yeah. So that takes us to September 18th of 1964. So they're in Mexico and they're running out of money. So Sharon decides she's going to find them some money. She meets a guy named Francisco Ordonez at this bar. And they start talking and he says, hey, why don't you come back to my hotel and check out some photos? Sharon obliges. She claims that when they get to the hotel, that he starts making sexual advances at her and she feels very uncomfortable. So uncomfortable to the point that at some point she actually shoots him.
Oh, shit. Okay.
And if we know one thing about Sharon thus far, it's that when she doesn't get what she wants, she starts blasting. And she ends up killing that man. And the hotel manager, wondering what the fuck is going on in my hotel, comes to the room, bursts in, and she shoots him in the shoulder and critically injures him. He actually survives, though.
Oh, my God. Take away this woman's blickies, please.
Please, just lock her up.
At this point. Okay.
Mexican police are not buying her story. They think that she planned to rob Francisco and it went bad. So they charge her with homicide for the murder and then assault with a deadly weapon for shooting the hotel manager. Mm-hmm. Now, as every investigation goes, they go to Hotel Gin. They search the room, they find more guns, they confiscate everything and send them off for ballistics, right? Francis is cleared. He's like, back to the States I go. I'm going to go cut some hair. I don't want anything to do with you, you crazy woman, right?
Smart guy. Peel out.
Right? Very smart man. And she gets 13 years. Ballistics come back 10 days later, and they confirm that the gun that killed Francisco is also the gun that killed Patricia.
Sorry, what the fact that the Mexican police are so much better than the American police, which
Dude,
man, America, you gotta lock your shit down.
get it together. Also,
What are
why
we
did you
doing?
keep that gun? Are you?
Good
I mean,
point.
look, I'm not advocating for the criminal, but I'm like, the smartest thing to do when you're crossing the border, when you're basically on the run, would probably be to get rid of the gun that you used for a murder.
Why couldn't they find it? Like, if she had the gun on her the entire time, where was that gun hidden?
They weren't even really investigating her, Eric. Like, let's be real.
Yeah, no. Like, they liked her, and they said no. Like
It couldn't be.
It has to be the husband. It has to be Walter. Like, good God.
So, is this the end of Sharon Kinne? I mean, she's locked up for 13 years now, but she makes a name for herself. And the Kansas City Star actually goes down to Mexico and does an interview with her. And she's quoted saying, "You know, one of the reasons why I can do just about anything I please is they're a little bit afraid of me. They're afraid of all the women convicted of murder."
Interesting.
So she makes a name for herself here. It's been reported that she had outside privileges and she kind of just like did whatever she wanted. They even coined her La Pistolera, which means the gunslinger.
That's sick. I'm not gonna lie, that's pretty rad.
She was really something. I mean, I think she was just very interesting to everybody in Mexico, everybody here. Like, she was in the news.
Yeah.
But, you know, at a certain point, you kind of just, all right, this, you know, we've seen this story. It's kind of like Luigi. We don't hear about him anymore, right?
Yeah.
Rolls around to December 7th of 1969. They had a little movie night at the prison and...
Wait, actually, can I ask a question real quick? I'm just curious about something.
Yeah.
At no point did they try her again for Patricia's murder in Kansas City?
No, because she was already acquitted, so double jeopardy.
Oh, damn. Okay, all right. Continue.
It was movie night, and they had a bed check at 9:30 p.m. after the movie. Sharon's missing.
Because of course she is. Okay.
Sharon's missing.
All right. She just Shawshanked her way out of Mexico.
They cannot find her anywhere. And the FBI is not notified until about 2 a.m. So some of the theories are that she bribed guards to look away while she escaped. There was also an unusual blackout during the time she escaped, which might have made it a little bit easier for her. The help of a Mexico City policeman, her family helped her, former Mexican service agent, and even that she disguised herself as a man. To this day, we actually don't truly know. Okay. So there is an all-out woman hunt, but it loses steam at the end of the month. And they're like, you know what? This woman is cunning, she is manipulative, and now she speaks Spanish because she's been in Spanish prison for about 5 years. And I don't know. I don't know.
Maybe the police just also assumed that, like, maybe she tried to come back to her home or like to her father-in-law's home and try to see her kids, and maybe they nail her then, or maybe they're just like, hey, she did it. Cool. Like, good props to her. We're not going to get into it anymore. We got more important things to deal with.
So Sharon was on the lam from 1969 to 2023. And that was until the Jackson County Sheriff's Office received an anonymous tip that Sharon had been living in Alberta, Canada, but it turns out she was dead.
What?
Yes.
When did she die?
She had been living under a different name.
So, sorry, this woman went all the way from Mexico all the way up to the tippy top of North America?
Yes. She made her way. She was an international traveler, Eric, okay?
Definitely, for sure.
So police subpoenaed the funeral home where her body was, and through forensic genealogy and fingerprint analysis, they were able to determine that Sharon Kinne was actually a woman named Deirdre Glabus, and she was going by the name Dee. Yes. So Dee was a volunteer in the little town. She was known to play bridge, and she even once held the role as the chair of the Tabor Care Daycare Center Committee. While she lived in Canada, she also had 2 husbands. And
are they alive?
Take a wild guess.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Is it at least natural causes? Like, come on, dude.
Pretty much. Like, her first husband, Jim Glabus, he died from diabetes and alcoholism. And they actually owned a hotel together called the Tabor Hotel, which if you go on Google right now, you can actually see reviews from not that long ago saying how kind and wonderful the hotel management was, which I just find hilarious.
Well, now we know what we need to do. We need a road trip. We got to go to that hotel and stay there.
A road trip, right?
That would be great.
This all was confirmed on May 31st of 2024. Fingerprints confirmed the identity exactly 64 years after Sharon's first arrest. But she died of natural causes on January 21st, 2022 in Alberta, Canada. And it's kind of interesting if you think about it. This person that made the anonymous tip actually waited until she was dead to make the tip. So were people still afraid of her to her dying days?
Maybe it's that, or maybe that hotel was so sweet that they were like, we don't want to ruin the business, honestly. Like, let's just keep it going.
They wanted her to get away with it for life? You think that? Oh,
yeah,
man.
maybe. That's crazy, though.
Master
I wonder who
manipulator.
put in that tip. I wonder who put in that tip.
I wish I knew. But how crazy is it that Sharon committed murder in 2 different countries and brought death upon almost every man she had a relationship with, and in some cases just a conversation, Francisco, and was on the run for most of her life? Like, in her 20s, she was fighting murder charges, and for the rest of her life, she was just hanging out on the run.
Like, somebody needs to make a movie about her. Like, honestly,
Right?
like, she is fascinating. And I mean, like, I guess, like, yay to the families that, like, she affected. Like, hey, she was finally caught, I guess. I don't know, caught by the Grim Reaper, but damn.
Her family did make a statement, and, she left all of her kids with James's parents and just took off forever. And they said that, they have had to deal with the repercussions of her actions, and she never was held accountable for any of that. So they said that they could finally put this terrible part of their lives to rest.
Wow. It is wild, too, because, like, not that, like, it's probably that small of a town, but, like, everybody knows that, like, especially because, like, when the information comes back that, like, she did have the murder weapon that killed Patricia, like, your mom was a murderer, and, like, they have no one to blame. They can't finger point at her or, like, blame her husband, so they're just gonna take it on you. And the fact that, like, the daughter may or may not have killed her father, it's like, I feel bad. I feel bad for that family.
I know. It's really sad, but I do hope that, they can move on peacefully and put this behind them. It's unfortunate that she just really ripped apart everything that she touched. Yeah. But, now people can move on from that and they have some type of closure, right?
It's crazy because, like, she is a terrible person, but I think she's just one of the most interesting people that I've ever heard of, and I'm kind of obsessed.
And we want to know what you guys think about it. Like, I'm so excited to hear what you guys think about it. Like,
please, if they made a movie about Sharon Kinne, who would you cast as Sharon? Like, let me get your full blown dream casting for this story.
So we need a Sharon, we need a Patricia, we need a James, we need a Walter, and
what's the James Dean looking guy? Was it
Francis?
Like, let me get the full cast, the full listing. Cast. Awesome. Autumn, once again, thank you so much. Thank you,
Erik. All right. Well, if you guys like this episode, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, go to every single app on your phone and click follow, subscribe. And thank you for being here.